Hi everyone, welcome back to yet another video of our backend series. In this video, we will be completing our project, which is the to-do list application, which we have been making so long. And apart from this, we will also begin testing our backend API together in this video. So by the end of this video, we will complete the to-do list API, which we have been making so far. So without further delay, let's go back to our code editor and let's see what we have done so far. So far we have done the user controller. We have set up the user controller, the to-do controller. Apart from this, we have also designed the routes, which will connect the routes with the respective functions for the controllers. That's it. Now after this, what we will do is we will integrate both the routes in a single application or a file, which is the app.js file. So app.js file, we have already made this file here. So the first thing which you have to do is you have to initialize an application from Express. So for that, we first need to import Express. So let's import Express first, then we will proceed. So import Express from Express. All right. Next, we have to initialize our app in the first place. So for initializing an app, you simply have to write const app equal to Express. Right, so Express provides a function itself called Express, which allows us to embed or use the Express JS framework in our server code. Next thing which we do is we define this is the app initialization. If I want to comment it and write, so app initialization. This is the app initialization part. Next thing which we do is the middleware setup. Middleware setup. So what is a middleware? A middleware is actually a function or an operation which exists in between the HTTP request and how the server responds to the request. For example, an HTTP request is coming to the server for doing a particular thing, say creating an account, and how the server will respond to it. The server will accept the email, username, password from the front end. So in between the request and the server's reaction or the response sits the middleware. So middleware has various functionalities. For example, if you're creating a sign up system for an application, there may be a provision for uploading a profile picture for a particular user. So the function of the middleware will be to first take the picture, store it in the server's folder, obtain a local path from a server's folder, upload it to some external cloud service provider for storing it, obtain an URL from that storage provider, and then submit it as an in the request body to the controller. Now what the controller will do, the controller will store that URL in the MongoDB or any database which you use. Now why have I not stored the image in the database of MongoDB of any other database like that? Because it is mainly recommended to store the image files in the storage providers externally which are available, because all this MongoDB, the Redis, the PostgreSQL are made for the purpose of storing textual data. When we are storing some image data, there needs to be some blob file which has to be created for every image file or media file, anything like that. So these databases are not perfect or not appropriate for storing images like that. So it's better that we store it in some external cloud service provider for storage. We obtain an URL from there and then we save it from the database. So we got deviated actually. So let's come back. So we were learning middleware. So middleware is something which sits in between how the HTTP request comes and how the server responds. So it sits in between that. So what are the middlewares needed in our case? In our case, the first middleware we need is the CORS. So for using the CORS, what is CORS? I will come to that. For using the CORS, we need to install a package over here, which is CORS. So what is CORS? First, let us install it. Then we will understand what is CORS. npm I CORS. Okay. So we have seen that CORS has been installed successfully. Let's close it now. Okay. Now what is CORS? CORS stands for Cross Origin Resource Sharing. Now what does this mean? Sometimes when we deploy this server code to the production, Many a times we will see that the front end is deployed on some other domains or some other virtual machines, and the server code runs on some other virtual machines, so that it's easier to bring out updates to the backend and the front end. The backends of the front end are never deployed together in production. That's a different story why they are not deployed, but when generally they are deployed into different virtual machines. So when we are deploying the backend on one virtual machine and the front end on other virtual machine, they both will have some different domains. Now by default, when we run our backend application locally, cross CORS or the cross origin resource sharing will not be a problem, or there will be no CORS problem, because we are all running it on the local host. But when the front end and the back end are deployed on two different machines, their domains are different, their origins are different. So as a security policy, by default the server will block incoming requests from other domains, right, from other origins. So to allow it, we import or we configure the CORS. So CORS will allow us to restrict or whitelist some domains so that our server and the front end can be integrated successfully. So CORS is a middleware which allows us to allow cross origin links or domains to access our server, right? As simple as that. So to use CORS, we need to import CORS in the first place. So let's go import CORS. CORS from CORS. Okay, so how do you initialize CORS with Express? Simply write app.use and inside this CORS. Now inside CORS we can specify the origins. Okay, now when you write origin as star, by star means we are whitelisting or we are allowing access to our server from any origin. Now this is not actually recommended for case of production, because in production you obviously will not allow other sites or other domains to access your backend code, right? So when you know your front end domain, you will surely add this to in the place of origin, so that only that particular domain is allowed. Now once we have set up the CORS, now we have learned one thing, that to use any middleware we use app.use like that. Okay, so first we have done settling the CORS, which is cross origin resource sharing. After allowing the CORS, the next thing which we have to do is we have to use app.use express.json. Now what does this mean? Now many a times when we send data from the front end, we send it in the form of JSON file. JSON actually means that JavaScript object notation. JavaScript object notation. Now what does this mean? When we use this line, that is app.use express.json, the JSON will be parsed properly. Many a times there is some difficulty faced in the backend side when handling JSON. So when you explicitly declare app.use express.json, the JSON, all the files, all the payloads that come from the front end side will be parsed properly. So this will allow us to parse the JSON files properly, right? Incoming JSON files properly. Next line which we will write, which is app.use express.url encoded and extended to be true. Now many a times we have seen that in our controller also, when we are obtaining some data from the query, we are obtaining in the form of an extended URL, where the URL is extended and we are serving our query payload over there in the URL. So to explicitly specify that yes, our URL will contain some sort of payload, we need to use app.use URL encoded and extended to true. That means our URL which we are going to receive is going to be extended, so that means it will contain some sort of data or payload, so that will also have to be parsed properly. Now apart from this, the next thing which we need to use is app.use express.static and public. Now what does this mean? When you declare express.static as public, this will allow the express to access the public folder in your server. Why do we need the public folder? Many a times there comes a situation where you are storing some files locally on your server. That time, to make sure that Express can avail or access the files stored locally, you have to declare explicitly this word static and then the folder name, which is public, or any folder name that you want to create. Now this appears to be insignificant in our case for the time being, because we are not handling with files. So if you are handling with file, be sure to use this line app.use express.static. This will allow the express.js server or the Node.js server to access the public folder or any other folder by that name, so that it can access or store the local files and the directories. Fine. Now that we are done with settling up the middlewares, so middlewares, next we have to set the routes middleware. So routes middleware, set. Right. Now what are the routes we are using? So if we go to the user routes, we are using the user routes, two routes, user routes and the to do routes, and we are all exporting them as route. Right. So our work will be to import them, to supply them a part of the URL, and then we will call them explicitly. So you will see now how we are framing the actual URL for using the to do route and the user route. So we will use app.use, right? Well enough. Next we will set the route. Now many times you will see the people are directly placing that /create /to-do, but since we are writing our code for production base, there may be some need to maintain or bring up some other versions of the backend code. So in that case, we will not want to hamper the pre-existing code, and if we want to hamper the pre-existing codes, we touch the pre-existing code, we will not want the server to be sacrificed or stopped. For that case, we import or we use versioning of our routes. So we will write our route in this way, that API slash v1 slash, and this time I will write user, since I want to use the user route. Well enough. So let us write over here user route, and let me see if it is getting imported automatically. No, it's not getting imported automatically. Let's import the user routes. So import user routes from routes.user.routes.js. So once I do user routes, so the user routes will be imported over here. So when I do /API/user and then again a slash and then this sign up, I will access the sign up function. And similarly for the to do routes, I will write app.use /API/v1/to-do and then the to do routes. Now this will allow me to use the to do routes which I exported it from that place. Fine. Now the last thing which we do is we will export the app which we just created. So export default app. This is the app which we created. So how we are importing the local routes? By using this API/v1/user, then the user routes, and API/v1/user, to do the to do routes. Why we are using v1? So we want to maintain the versioning of our backend application. So we are writing API/v1, then the user route, then to do the to do route. Why we are writing API? Because this is just a production grade practice. If you want to omit this, that's up to you. This is how the APIs are designed in production, right? And finally, we exported the app. So that's it. Our app.js file is ready. Now to start the server on a particular port, we need to do some configurations. So let's go to the index.js file, and from this index.js file, we will import the app which we just created, and then we can listen our server on some particular port. So this is our index.js file. We have seen that we have already connected the database, and we have also seen that our MongoDB was connected successfully. Now the next thing which we have to do, once our database is connected, we want our app to listen on some specific port. So mainly the port, you do not write the port explicitly over here. We define a port number on the env file. So we go to the env file, we come to the next line, and let us define a port. port equal to say I want to run my backend application on port 5000. Now make sure that 5000 port is free. It is not occupied by some other application. So if it's occupied, you will get some error. So in some case, you will get some error because of this port is not free. So you have to handle it accordingly. Okay. So let's go to index.js file. Yeah. Now I want, once my connectDB function is successfully executed, my database is connected, only then I will want my app to listen or start, my server to start. So how will you do that? So I can use connectdb.then. Okay, then there will be a function. So let us write the function over here. Okay, some sort of error. And this is the catch which will log the error. And inside this, then I will write my app. I will import my app and then I will make it listen. So it will be app. So I imported my app. If you can see from this place, I imported my app and then I will press dot listen. And then I have to supply a port. Now, how will you supply a port? You can supply a port by obtaining the port number over here, const port equal to process.env.port. Okay. Now, once you have obtained the port, you can supply the port number over here that you want your application to listen on this port. So, well enough, you have to supply the port and then a callback function. And now this callback function will be triggered once your app is successfully listening on a specific port. So just log that our app is running, log that our server is running on this specific port. So I probably did error. So I committed an error over here, this place. Just a minute. All right. Now that everything is done, our application is ready. So what we have done in this file, we have imported the app. Okay, we have created the app in the express app.js file. We will import that same app in the index.js file. Since this is our start, this is the place from where our application start or the server start. So in the package.json, you have mentioned in the start script that node index.js. So this is the entry point of our server code. So in the index.js, what we have done, we have imported the port number from process.env.port. Make sure that the specific port is free for running that application on that specific port. Otherwise, we have to change that port number. Now, I wanted that once my connection to database is successfully done, only then my app.js file will start, my server will start only that time. So for that, I did connectdb.then, that is the asynchronous data.javascript, which returns a promise. Once promise is written, I want that app to listen on that time. So I did app.listen. Server is running on port, the port number which you just gave. And if there is some error, I will console that error here. So log error. That's it. Our server is absolutely fine to start. So let's go to the terminal and let's fire up our terminal. And so here is my terminal. Let's do a quick ls. So we are in our backend folder. Make sure you are in your backend folder, and let's give a quick npm start and let's see what are the errors we are getting. I assume that there will be some sort of error because I'm also a learner and we are all doing it together. So there may be a possibility of some error to occur. So let's give npm start and let's see what is the log we are getting. npm start. Okay, yeah, the first error which we get. What is the error we are getting? So it's a module error. We are getting that cannot find module. What is the module? Yeah, it's not finding the app module. So where is the error find? Okay, fine. So here you have to mention app.js. Some systems automatically detects it as app, so you have to figure out. Okay, so again, let's start my app. npm start, second attempt. Okay, the next thing, cannot find package express. That sounds a bit tricky. Let's go to my app.js file. Okay, so it's cannot find the Express module. I hope my Express is installed. Let's check. npm I express. My Express was not installed. That's strange. Okay, so let's start. npm start once again. Okay, the next error. Next error is the requested module does not provide an export named login. Okay, so where is the error? user.controller.js. Let's go to user.controller.js. Let me see what is the problem. Okay, so we have exported it as default. Remember, we have exported it as default. Okay, so to import it in the user routes, we have imported correctly, I guess. Let's see what's the error we are getting again. Okay, so user.route.js cannot get this login. Okay, cannot provide an export. Okay, so let's just remove the default and let's export it as it is. Remove the default, and here also to do controller, user controller, yeah, remove the default. Okay, let's start once again. So npm start. Okay, fine. New error. So it says that mongoose.schema is not a constructor. Okay, so what's the error? In the user.model.js, we're getting that new mongoose.schema. Okay, so in the user.controller.js, okay, it says that mongoose.schema. Okay, I did a mistake over here. This capital mongoose will not be present over there. So let's remove this. Okay, and you have to change this to mongoose small m. Okay, I hope the error is resolved now. Let's open the terminal again. Let's do npm start. Let's wait for the log to come. I hope this time there is no error. Okay, so we got an error which says that, if you can read this, it says that we cannot connect to servers in MongoDB Atlas cluster because one common reason that you are trying to access the database with an IP which is not whitelisted. Now this happens because of a security measure which is probably given by MongoDB, which says that if any IP you are accessing, trying to access the database, and that IP is not whitelisted, that means the IP of my laptop is not whitelisted from the servers of MongoDB. So yes, I will get an error for that. So how to solve this? For solving this, I will have to go to MongoDB again. So this is how you learn, by getting some sort of errors. So I would like to share my screen at the same time. Let's see if I get the permission of doing that. Here I'm in my Chrome, and the first link, I will go to MongoDB Atlas. So sign in. So what we have to do, we have to whitelist our IP of this computer. So for doing that, we'll go to Google, and this is my fictitious email ID. So I'm just showing you how can you whitelist. So by default, since we're doing this for trial, we will allow all the IPs to access the database. So for doing that, this is our database, and so see here we are getting that current IP is not added. You will not be able to connect to database from this address. That is the only error which we are getting. So to solve this, where we need to go is, we need to come up over here, then come to network access. Now inside the network access, here you have to write add IP address. Now inside this IP address, you have to click allow access from anywhere. Now once you do this, the IP address 0.0/0 will come. Okay, now once you confirm this, now this includes your current IP address. It will already show because we are whitelisted all the IP address to access the database. Now once that is done, now we will try to again do the same thing which we were doing, that is start the server. So let's see whether we can start the server properly or not. Inside the VS Code, what we will do is we will restart the service. So Control C, Control L, let's start. So it's saying that connecting to MongoDB, and yes, MongoDB is connected, and our server is finally running on server port 5000. So how do you check this? Now for checking this, we'll simply define a random route in the slash route, okay, so that we will first check whether any response is coming from the server or not. So for getting a response, let us terminate it. Let's go to app.js and we'll define a simple route in the slash route. So let it be get, okay, app.get. So let it be app.get, and let us define a home route, only slash. Let us define a callback function, okay, and there will be request.response in the parameters, request.response, and we'll just send a response that hello world or hi from my server, okay, hello from to-do list server. Okay, now let's check whether we are getting this response or not. Okay, so I did a error. Okay, that's fine. Okay, this sort of typos do happen day to day. Okay, so let's start. npm start, connecting to MongoDB, server is running on port 5000. Now how will you check this? To check this, it's very simple. Just go to your Chrome or any other browser. Okay, so in my Chrome browser, this is the MongoDB page. Simply write localhost 5000 and let's see whether we are getting any response or not. Okay, so yeah, we are getting that hello from to-do server. That means server is running successfully. Okay, server is up and running successfully. Now here comes the testing part. Now backend is always difficult in testing. So how we will test it, we will see in the next video, because this video has already become 30 minutes. So we'll see in the next video how we will do the testing of this backend application. So our application is ready, project is done. We will now test it and let's see if we get some sort of errors or bug. We will try to recover them and clear out the bugs. So that's all in this video. I will see in the next video where we will install Postman, an API testing service or our front-end client, which will allow us to check our backend service which we have prepared. And with that, all this code, whether it is working properly or not, we will be seeing if it's working properly or not. So that's all in this video. I will see you in the next video. We will learn about Postman and how to test any backend application or backend client with the Postman client. That's all. I will see you in the next video.